I mustered up the courage and I went for an evaluation and said, you know, I'm curious if I have ADHD. And Giuseppe, what happened to me was just it's a story that I hear more often, right? And the physician said to me, "Are you here looking for medication?" I said, "No, I'm here to see if I have a diagnosis. Here's where I'm struggling." And what he said to me was, "Do you have a job?" And I said, "Yes, I work at a big, huge medical center." "Are you married?" I said, "Yes." "Do you have kids?" "Yes." "Did you do okay in school?" I said, "I did okay." He said, "You don't have ADHD." He said, "You are in midlife crisis. You have anxiety and probably a little depression. And if you lost about 40 pounds, your whole life would be different." So not only did I get dismissed and fat shamed in one visit, and so I walked out of there and it was all plus I had to pay a $20 copay, right? So it wasn't like a free visit.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Alike Marketing. Today we are here with another great guest. We are here with Dawn. Uh, and what Dawn does, Dawn helps high achieving adults with ADHD or those who suspect they have it, who feel overwhelmed, scattered, and burnout. Even from the outside, they look like they've got it all together. Through neuroscience-backed coaching and personalized strategies, Dawn helps them create sustainable focus, emotional clarity, and habits that actually work with the brain so they can finally stop spiraling and start showing up for the life they want. I mean, that's amazing. You are the first type of person that actually are in this podcast to work in specific close with neuroscience, back coaching, and specific with people that have ADHD. I'm super excited because obviously I want to know more. Coming from a different country, coming from Italy, uh, first time I heard about ADHD, I was like, okay, I can understand, but like, why it looks like everyone speak about ADHD? What's going on in this country? Like, and I feel like maybe there is in Italy, but it's not like not so many people speak about it, or like not so many people trying to go in that. But I'm super excited, and obviously, I'm excited to hear from you, Don. Like, how did you start? How we got? I imagine maybe you had experience with it, but I want to hear from you.
Yes. Well, thank you first of all for having me. And I'm excited that I'm the first person here to share this and with the background. My journey is actually more familiar to adults than we would see, right? At around the age of, let's see, it would be about maybe my early 30s. I suspected, I thought I might have ADHD here, right? I come from the healthcare background and I know ADHD, but ADHD was always kind of looked at as that 9-year-old hyperactive boy, right? Who's jumping on the furniture and they would be, oh, he's got ADHD. But I knew that there was more to that, and I thought, "You know what? I'm kinda suspecting that I wonder if this is possible." And so I mustered up the courage, and I went for an evaluation and said, you know, "I'm curious if I have ADHD." And Giuseppe, what happened to me was just it's a story that I hear more often, right? And the physician said to me, "Are you here looking for medication?" I said, "No, I'm here to see if I have a diagnosis. Here's where I'm struggling." And what he said to me was, "Do you have a job?" And I said, "Yes, I work at a big, huge medical center." "Are you married?" And I said, "Yes." "Do you have kids?" "Yes." "Did you do okay in school?" I said, "I did okay." He said, "You don't have ADHD." He said, "You are in midlife crisis. You have anxiety and probably a little depression. And if you lost about 40 pounds, your whole life would be different." So not only did I get dismissed and fat shamed in one visit, and so I walked out of there and it was all plus I had to pay a $20 copay, right? So it wasn't like a free visit. And I got into my car and I was just beside myself because I had mustered up this courage, right? And I was going to this professional. And to be honest, at that point, I was a little embarrassed because I thought, do I have ADHD? I don't really know. And it's kind of always had that little bit of that stigma, especially back then, right? And so I carried on with my life. Well, once my kids were a little bit older and they were struggling, and I brought them to get an evaluation, and one of the things it said was that they have ADHD. And it happened separately because there's 2 years different. And one of the things on there was to get, an ADHD coach. And I looked all over for an ADHD coach, and I could not find one. And so what happened is I thought, "Well, maybe I'll become an ADHD coach." But I wasn't planning on being a coach for everybody. I was just wanting to be a coach so I could help my kids, right? And so in true ADHD fashion, even though I didn't know it at the time, I was working a full-time job at the hospital. I was running a vacation rental, like an Airbnb VRBO. I was selling this natural cleaning product because I didn't want the chemicals in my home. And I had just signed up for cookie camp, how to make these beautiful cookies. Now, right there should have been the light bulb, right? And now I'm going to go back to school. And so, as I was in my training and I was reading about these studies, I'm like, this sounds like me. I think I have ADHD. I really do. And Giuseppe, the one of the funniest things is I went back to the hospital. This is not the hospital that I went to for my diagnosis, but the hospital I worked at. And I said to the director, I said, I am wondering if I should get a second opinion. I really think that I've been misdiagnosed. And at this point, sometimes it's that feeling of, am I going to challenge authority? Am I going to challenge a medical professional? Right. And he said to me, Dawn, what do we call the doctor that graduates last in our class? I said, I don't know. He said, doctor. I thought, dang, I got that D student. I had the doctor who wasn't there during the ADHD training, who doesn't know about ADHD. And so what happened is then I waited and I went and I got another evaluation. And at this point, I went to this physician and I said, listen, I don't care what I have, but here's the thing I am struggling, right? I am struggling. I don't care what this is called, but I need help. And she said, I will help you. And so it was a few weeks later after the testing that I got my results back that said, Dawn, you have ADHD. And so at 48 years old, right, I got this diagnosis. And initially, this journey was so that I could help my kids. But then I realized I'm not the only one that is struggling, at, middle age, right? We're working so hard and we can't figure out why is everything so difficult? Why are we trying so hard and we're barely keeping up, right? On the outside, it might look like we're living the American dream. We're thriving, but on the inside, we're exhausted, right? We're just overwhelmed. We're just so tired. And that's when I made the transition that I didn't need to be working in a hospital to be helping people anymore because I love people. I love the science. I love to learn. And that's when I made the transition to work with adults, whether they're diagnosed or not, that are struggling with ADHD, whether they have the diagnosis or not, because sometimes we just don't know. We just think, am I unorganized or am I lazy? Because unfortunately, this is what we've been told.
That's awesome. It's kind of interesting what you were saying to me, but like one thing I never really understood with ADHD, like your story and everything, like kind of like showed me that like something different. Because for me, like whenever I think about like different or like things, or not different, but like special or stuff like that, like they call it special and everything. It's like when there's a minority of people with that. But honestly, like more people describe me ADHD and more I'm like, what is 50-50? Like I met one person today, like on 10 people I met today, probably five they have it and five they don't. It's not really like, oh well, it's more like a character or personality trait, like it's when you go to school and they say like why some people they can learn fast and everything. I used to do tutoring. I did tutoring when I was in university. I did tutoring in high school, and I'm thinking the difference between kids that they can learn and not is not that the fact that they cannot learn. It's the way you give information that's wrong for them. It's like it doesn't mean that they're like sick or they have mental problems, they have anything. It's just like they are made different because God made everyone different. They're gonna be amazing in their life. You just cannot use the same curriculum the same way that to just give it to them.
Exactly, and you're touching on such an important part because sometimes I'll work with people that are, back in school, right? Or, sometimes there'll be younger adults who are finishing college, and sometimes the struggle, they're like, "Hey, this is so hard," right? But the stuff that they're doing that's hard is like entering numbers, right? Which to some of us would be like, "Oh, that's so easy. Anybody can enter numbers." But because it's so boring and not challenging, it becomes hard, right? And so, a perfect example is like what you're saying there. If you get a good teacher, right, or a professor or a boss that really, engages the brain, it can make such the difference in the experience, right? I think of like, cleaning the house versus having somebody like Mary Poppins, music and snapping our fingers. Well, yeah, it doesn't seem so bad, right? And so it's bringing interest to this brain, right? Because really when things are not interesting, they're boring and they're dull, they really are hard for us, right? Where, for somebody neurotypical, you could say, Giuseppe, this is important, but important doesn't really ignite us as much as urgency, right? Like taxes are due. I've got to get this done. Novelty, right? Which is why so many of us are entrepreneurs, right? That challenge or the competition. Those are the things that ignite our brain. They excite us, right? It's not so much important. And, I think what you said before about, you know, does this person have ADHD or this person? It's because it's like an invisible. Right? So, if you saw that somebody was, in a wheelchair and that, you see them walking by, you hold the door for them, right? You just know without them saying anything. If you or I were walking on the street, there's no visible sign, right? Except maybe if my pants were on inside out, which I have done that before, that I have maybe have ADHD, right? It might look like this busy mom. And so people, I think, just kind of think that it's a fad, like, "Oh, doesn't everybody have ADHD?" No, it's not, right? And the difference there is, yeah, we can all lose a little bit of focus, right? We can all lose our keys or, not have a lot of energy, but it's how it impairs our daily life, right? Our day-to-day operations, it's the way it impairs our relationships, it's executive functioning, right? It's not even about, like, smart, right? It's not like, because that is the piece, right? Is like, "Oh, you're too smart," right? If somebody said, "Giuseppe, you're too smart. You got your podcast and you're doing all this." There's no way of ADHD. It has nothing to do with education, right? It has nothing to do with the smarts. It's the pieces of the executive function that really are what, makes it hard for the day-to-day tasks.
It's hard to compare because let's give you an example. For example, like with my brother, right? Uh, we are we are four in our family, but like me, but mostly I grew up really close with my brother. And my brother, when he was in middle school, then uh, they went to my mom saying like, "Hey, your brother, like he might be autistic or might be like slow learner, like something like that." Obviously, my mom was like, "No, you just guys don't know how to teach." My mom was really mad, and but at the same time, when he was 9, he started to play bassoon. I don't know if you know the instrument, the bassoon.
Oh
It's
my
like
gosh, yeah.
as the yeah, and he's like he has 2 master in bassoon. He's like it's really good. And the teacher, the bassoon teacher, when I heard the other teacher say like, "Hey, he's slow learner, he's autistic," he was like, "No," like he was like, "It's not possible because the way he learned music and he understand and he reads and everything, he is amazing. He just bored." It's like
Yes,
he's
exactly.
bored in your class. Like he just like it's bored because he doesn't like what are you teaching. He's bored. But like when we play music, when I tell him about to do this and that, like he's a receptive. He understands. He goes fast and everything. He has none of this thing, and that's was like one of the example for me. It was like it's interesting, like people trying to put this I don't know, think like names on people just because they don't just because we don't look all the same or we don't respond all the same of things automatically means like we are different in a way that we are either disabled on somehow or something like our mind is disabled or something where I always sometimes think maybe it's a superpower, maybe it's not a disabled. Like what about it might be the opposite.
Well, you're right. It's like they wanna fit everybody into a box, and that's such a great piece, and, I'm sure the teacher doesn't wanna know that her teaching style is boring, right? But, it's funny, I had seen this video once, and they were talking about, for example, math and how math and fractions can be very difficult, right? But then they had the old school haircut, like the mullet, right? Where it's high, and then, if they showed how short it was on the side here, what fraction that would be, maybe 1/3, 1/2, and it was so interesting that it was like everybody knew the fractions then, because this wasn't the typical way to teach fractions. Right? Or you see about, like, the eclipse, and you see it with the Oreo cookie. Now it's a little bit more interesting than just somebody just talking and talking and talking, you know?
Mhm.
And so you're absolutely right. And that's the sad thing, is that a lot of teachers, even though they mean so well, sometimes they teach one way, but they don't teach to all the different ways that our brains learn. And so we're trying to take somebody who has a different brain wiring and kind of mold them into a way to learn like everybody else does, and that just doesn't work. But then that leaves the adult person, feeling shamed, lazy, not smart, afraid of failure, instead of just saying, "Hey, let's figure out another way to do this," right? So, and, it just makes me think of a quick story, is that when I was little, one of the things that got brought up to my parents was that my teacher said that, "I think Dawn has anger issues. She's always so frustrated and angry in class. She starts ripping up her papers, and then she's upset about it." And my mom was really concerned, and she was like, Dawn seems so happy and bubbly. I just don't see it." But what turned out was, when my mom brought it up to my brownie teacher, the Girl Scouts and brownies, she said, "No, Dawn's left-handed. She needs to be using left-handed scissors, not right-handed scissors." And that's a perfect example of trying to set somebody up in a world that wasn't designed for them. So, of course, if I'm left-handed and I'm using right-handed scissors, it's not gonna work for me. But as soon as I got those left-handed scissors, Giuseppe, I had no problems at all.
Yeah. No, that's a great example. But I'm also left-handed.
Oh my gosh, how funny is that? So you really can understand that.
Yeah, it's true. But I always like a challenge. As I say, each one of me and my family are totally different. Many times, like my brother and sister, they also look at me because like I'm the type of person that somehow like I don't know, I always find the smart way to get through things. Or the sometimes the challenge way, but like for me, it's like I don't want to conform with the world. I always try to do things my own way. And even when it was like with thing, I never wanted to buy a left-handed scissor because like for me it was like it's be like downgrade. I needed to learn how to use my right hand too. Then like even my laptop, I know a lot of people with left hand that they want the left hand mouse and everything. I always use my right hand. And I never really I even wanted to trying to learn myself to write with the right hand. It was just like no, I have to, but also I like science. For example, like for me, you were saying math had never been a problem. My mom, she loved math and everything, and I started to learn with her before I went to school. And she made it more like a game than like teaching. It was like a lot of them was a competition. Like, okay, let's see who finished fast, like who get this done fast and everything. And if you do like you get this and you get that, then like I always did math with competition. And for me, what I love it. And it was funny because when I started tutoring, what I was tutoring kids, I was also tutoring math and physics. Because that's is one of the things where, and it's like don't matter where country people always struggle in that. Math, physics, that's the struggle for every country. Then, like for me, I was like, well, I love it. I understand. I want to see if I can tutor kids, right? And I have few kids tutoring them. Like it's funny, like each one of them when I was sitting was totally different. But the most amazing part of it, I was not trying instead of trying to tell them how to learn or how to solve the problem, I was asking the question. I was like, what you would do here? Like, what is the next step? Like because they always trying to give you the math and it's like you have to go through from A to B to this way. But honestly, at the end of the day, I was like, I don't care how you get to B. Like, just get to B. I was like, I need you to get to B. Like, can you figure out how to get to B? And then sometimes people, each one of them, they would find a different way to get to B. And I was like, amazing. I don't care. Like, I mean, this is at the end of the day, when you go to take the exam to see if you pass math or not, they just want to know if you get to B. They don't like, that's what you have. Like, and each one of them, once they stop, force themselves to do like the book does, or like the teacher on YouTube does, or like their teacher school does. They all understood how to do it. They just had to create that connection in the brain that works for them, and done. They did.
And I love that you were meeting these kids where they're at, right? Instead of trying to show the one way, because we know there's many ways to do the same thing, right? And so just having that creativity and being curious about, hey, how can we make it work for this one? And that's what I do with my clients is, you know, they're very successful people, but there's pieces, for example, like some of my clients, I have a one client that says, how can I close these $1,000,000 deals, but then struggle with sending emails, right? Or forgetting to get the milk that my wife has asked me to pick up on the way. And that's the piece, right? Is that, there's areas that we're so strong in, but then there's these pieces. And so it's about just kind of figuring out how do we create that way so that we can live that optimal life, that high performance of being, having a good, like, professional and personal life, not having one area a struggle, right? And so that curiosity. So I love that you brought that to them many years ago, realizing that, hey, there's more than one way to learn this.
No, that's, I mean, and what you would say, like, I mean, how I feel like ADHD, it's like different. And like it's maybe there's not only one pattern, or like maybe it's not the pattern is not always in the same side of your life. Like as you were saying before, it sounds like, for example, like that person specifically, it does look so normal when it comes to business itself, like closing deals and everything. But like when it comes to relation with his wife, or like remember small things, that's where he struggles. How, like, I would say, like, how you could define that at the end of the day, like what is that define it?
Yeah, what I would say is that, a perfect example, like if you were lucky enough to be in school, right, and have these excellent teachers or a teacher who really, I've seen before where, kids have been labeled as difficult, right? And kicked out of the classroom. But when you get a teacher who is really curious or knows a little bit more about ADHD or about sensory and realizing, hey, these lights are too bright and there's too much background noise here, right? Or their kid that they're sitting next to. Let's just kind of see what we can do with the situation that we have, right? And all of a sudden this kid is thriving, right? And so what I would say is there's a few pieces, but what I see with the adults that I work with is usually it's around kind of a lifestyle event where the ADHD is really showing up. So it may have been there before, right? But now maybe it's more like prevalent, like say you're starting a new job, right? You're having a family, right? You're using a lot more executive functioning than you had to use before. So maybe you were worried just about yourself, right? But now maybe you're also managing a team, right, at work, and you're married and you've got kids and you're doing all this planning and organizing and working memory and getting started on these tasks. And this executive function is being tasked harder and harder. And that's where people start to really realize, like, I can't keep up, right? Or it also happens with women, sometimes even around menopause when there's the fluctuations of estrogen, right? And also, again, maybe it's a new job or maybe it's taking care of a family, or there's that, generational where maybe you've got your own kids and you're taking care of your parents. Now there's a lot of moving pieces in there. There's a lot of executive function that we're using. And that's then sometimes where it shows up, right? Where before we didn't, maybe somebody didn't have to, take care of family and run their business, right? They maybe just did their 9 to 5 job, came home and it was just them. And so they were, maybe they had some strategies in place, so it seemed okay. They may have been surviving, most likely not thriving because there were pieces, but it wasn't as obvious as it is now. Does that make sense?
No, it totally makes sense. It's it's interesting world, because like honestly, I also make people from that have ADHD that are like, oh, when I focus, I'm like, I mean, like when I find a way to focus and I get there, it's like you cannot move them. It's just like they're like all in, like they're amazing. And that's why sometimes I even thought like maybe I have some of it, because that's similar to me. Like in when I was going to university, like people will trying to understand like how I can pass an exam in 1 week study. Like I would start like my longer exam, it took me a month to study, but that was on 30 exam. Like all the other one, it was 1, 2 weeks. I would prepare 2 or 3 exam in 2 weeks, stuff like that, not followed nothing. And they were like, why? Even my sister now, she's in university, she gets old because she's going where I went to university, and a lot of people still remember about me. They're still there and everything. And they're like, "Oh, are you like your brother and everything?" And I always tell her, don't compare to me. Like I'm another case. Like in fact, even my friends, some of my friends knows me. They tell her like, don't do whatever he was doing. Like he's not a normal person. Like and came through university. Like more people takes longer time and everything. And I always tell people the things was that like when I wanted to focus to study, I could not do for like I knew people they would start from 6 a.m. to 9, 11 p.m. No, me, I was like, I had to wake up whenever I want to wake up. I had to eat, enjoy my time. But then like once I get in at 9, I can do 9 to 1 in one. Like no distraction, nothing. Like just be and actually I needed distraction. I was always had TV, I had show running on the side because I
Yeah,
needed something on the side. Or I had like really either loud music, like for example, like hardcore music or like jump, like really loud music and things, stuff like that. And I was thriving. I liked that. That's what was me. But I was not distracted. I knew I was getting whatever I was reading, but I could only do it like 3 hours in the morning, maybe other 3, 4 hours in the afternoon. And after that, I had to leave and go to the gym. I was like, I'm not doing anything. I'm not studying. I need to relax.
yeah, yeah. Well, and that's excellent, and the fact that, like, you were and I think that's the whole part about coaching, right, is that when I meet people, it's like they're here because they've been trying to do it, say, like, the neurotypical way or the way that their friends do it, and now it's like they're just exhausted, they're burnt out, and they're just like, I just can't do it anymore, and so, at that point, it's like, "Alright, let me find a way that really works with my brain so I can accomplish these things," because it's almost like being a chameleon, right? Trying to, fit into a certain mold and do things when, like you're saying, a perfect example. Like, if your mom had said to you, "Giuseppe, you are not leaving this table, you are sitting here every day after school," right? Versus you knowing, "Hey, mom, I need to sleep, then I need to do this hyper focused chunk, and then I'm gonna go move my body, get some oxygen, get some dopamine exercise, and then maybe I'll come back," right? And so it's saying, "Okay, I'm ready to learn the way that really works with my brain." And the tricky thing about ADHD is that I always say, if you've met somebody with ADHD, you've met somebody with ADHD because it's almost like we're all different flavors of ADHD, right? Like you could be vanilla and I could be, creme brulee, if that's even a flavor. And so things that work for you may work for me and vice versa, but they may not. And so, it's really specific to that individual. And for example, I've got a couple really, high executives where I have 2 of them that rock a planner, right? They write all their stuff in planners. And I have some clients that say to me, "Dawn, do not even mention the word planner. That is such a trigger word. I hate the word planner." Right? And so it's a perfect example. They both have ADHD, but theirs is just a little bit different. And so it's kind of figuring out how to work with your ADHD, you know?
Yeah, brains are brains. Like I love neuroscience because I was reading a book. I was reading a book about that and watching some, and that's what they say. Like even the things like it's like I have a master in electronic engineering, and
Mm,
one of the reasons why I love electronic engineering was the reason why because it's like it's so close to what is inside our body. We have all
yeah,
these electrical connection, and each one is different. Like it doesn't matter how many brain you're gonna carry in parts. Like everyone is gonna have like the connection inside. They're gonna be a little bit different. Have gonna be a little bit different angle and everything. And people cannot come and tell me like that doesn't change the person you are. It does, because if it does in a circuit, like if I take an electronic circuit, a chip, and I change a little bit the trajectory or like the thing, it's gonna change the way things work, the way the chip works. It's gonna make some delay, it's gonna create some stuff. Then why a brain would not do that? Like why a body would not do that? Then people coming like, I don't know, you can give at the end of the day as many names as you want, ADHD. I mean, there are some things that are true, but at the end of the day, what we need to really to understand is like there is no box for us. There's doesn't matter how many people you're gonna meet. They're always gonna have something different. They're always gonna do something different. They're gonna have something that like for you looks weird and for you looks like it's ADHD or autistic and whatever you want, but for them it's a normality. It's the standard. You are the one that looks weird.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think what you're saying too is that it's so important to, be your unique self, right? Be that unique circuit board because also too, there's so many gifts that we give, right? And knowledge and expertise and creativity, right? We think of the stuff outside the box that nobody thinks of, right? Um, and that's also where we meet our people, right? And so if we're trying to play small and just try to fit the mold, right? We're really doing ourselves a disservice, right? Because we have so much, to give and to share and really get to know who we really are as adults. And I think, this journey for me it was kind of an unexpected journey, but now I'm like, wow, my first 48 years were really difficult, but that doesn't mean my next 48 are, right? If I think of like an aged cheese or an aged wine, they get better in time. And so that's what's going to happen with me, right? Better with time. And really, I don't feel like I would have really got that chance to really get to know myself if I didn't really do the deep dive and even learn about the ADHD. And there's such that validation of it's not I'm not using ADHD as an excuse, but an explanation of why these things happen or why this is. Also gives you, I think, some, self-compassion for yourself, right? That yeah, it's okay. My circuit's different than your circuit, right? They both work. There might just be a couple little tweaks here and there.
And yes, and every time you have to just learn. I mean, like you just keep going. And I'm really kind of like grateful to find people like you. And even if you're not specific for ADHD, I think like tutor coaching and everything, like if you find the person that like might be similar to you or like at least understanding where you are or the type of person you are, it can really help you. Like I found a coach that was like before ask her to be my coach. Like I met with her, took a coffee and everything, and I noticed there was some type of connection. Or we were some things we are doing similar. We're thinking. I was like, okay, that's. And for a long time, I was looking for a coach, but I was always scared because I was like, I don't want to find the type of person that's gonna force me to go in a direction that's not the way I am. Like you were saying before with planner, I'm not a big planner myself. Like all these people that say like, "I've been successful because I wrote everything down." I'm like, yeah, I met also so many people that they never wrote anything down and they are successful. You know, it's like it depends how the brain works. I try, I write some things down because I need for remember, but I don't stick with it 100%. Because if I stick with it 100%, I feel in a cage. Like it's not who I am. Like I like to be like, I'm believer, I'm God. Like when people presented to me, I was not believer for all my life, but when people presented me God, the fact that you need to have faith, you need to believe in God and trust in God. For me, it's hard. I say it's hard because God a lot of time doesn't tell you the plan. It just tell you like, yeah, that you need to get there. How do you get there? You're gonna find out. But like at the end of the time, it's hard but excite me because I am that type of person. Like I am the person that's like I want to reach the highest top mountain. Like I want to really get there. Then I'm excited when God points me to that direction. I'm a bit scared sometimes when I don't know how to go it, but at the same time, I'm still there is that like I don't know. It's hard to say. Like there is that fear, excited inside of you. It's like I feel because like I'm really having a hard time right now, but I'm excited because I'm like, oh, this is I don't know what's gonna happen. Like next step, it might be a nice breakthrough. I'm gonna meet and like I don't know, I'm gonna make something so great. I'm gonna be able to have help so many people or do so many great things. And you're like, okay, I want to do it. I want to do it. And that's where I think like most of my faith comes from is that because I'm also like that. I was already that type of person, like since I was kids, I was going for the challenge.
Mm,
Uh,
yeah.
I was not the person who was like, oh yeah, I'm okay with easy and everything. I was like, it's so annoying. I already done this, like I got already my master. I'm 23, cool. I'm okay. Like I already done this. I was like, it started to get boring. And then meeting God was like, wow, this life it's amazing. Like with God, you cannot get bored. Like it's gonna challenge you as much as you want.
Yeah. Well, and when you say that, I think about when I hear people and they say, "I'm bored." I'm thinking, "Bored? How can you be bored? There's so much out there." Right? There's so much out there. I mean, just to learn and experience. And I think, I sometimes meet clients and they're later in life and they're saying to me, Dawn, my fear is that I will have regret one day. And so they don't really care what age it is now. They're like, I had one woman who wanted to do a non for profit. It was, like it was like spiritual. It was like workbooks and about beliefs, and it was like you would use it with your family, right? And so the family could kind of design this for themselves. And she was 71, but she's like, "I've always felt that this was my mission to do this." But she was struggling with organizing and how to get it out there and how promoting and all those pieces that felt scary. But she said to me, "My fear is that I'm gonna have this regret when it's too late." And so, yeah, sometimes things are fearful, but then we either, right? Either we learn from it or we grow and we expand our tolerance for fear. But at the end, if we regret that we didn't do it, it's like there's not a whole lot we can do there, right? So, I acknowledge the fact that, yeah, stuff can be scary, but that you're still doing it, right? And, I think every day is a new day to grow, to learn something, even if it's about ourselves.
No, 100%. I would take that more than regret all the time. It's
Oh
just
my
like
gosh. Yes.
there's there's one life. I don't want to throw it away, but at the same time, I'm like I don't want to leave that. I'm 70, 80, and had so many plans, so many things being written down. I haven't done even one of it. Not even tried to do one of it because, like, I mean, not everything works. And people ask me like, how you keep going. I'm like, bro, like that's life. Like, it doesn't matter how much like good you can be. Like, not everything is gonna work any all the time because some things are not meant to. Like you were saying before we start the meeting, like you were saying, it's like you have to go through some things to realize who you are and everything. Some things are not meant for us. Like some things you specifically don't need to go through or you not have to achieve because it's not meant for you. It's not where you need to be. There's something out there, another side that's meant for you, but you need to keep going. It's like if you keep going, you're gonna win 99% of the people.
Well, and I think that's the other piece too, right? Is like if you're going for whatever it is you're going for is your authentic self versus trying to fit into this mold. Right? If you're so busy trying to be something that you're not or do something the way everybody else does, you don't really have time to really look at that creativity that you have, all those ideas, right? Because you kind of can lose some of that and it's just draining where it's like, hey, let me find a way that works for me so that I can really give or, contribute to the world and to people by doing what I'm here for you know? And so part of my message is about embracing who we are. There's so many different people and I'm a little different than my friends, right? I love that I look at things a little bit differently. I have humor strengths and I do go about that roundabout way to get there. And I like that. I don't always want that direct path. And I kind of acknowledge what you're saying about that piece of like fear or a little anxiety, but anxiety and excitement feel very similar in the body. And again, I can't imagine not being excited about something every day when we wake up.
Well, one question actually, since we are in the marketing, also my business, I'm kind of like interested, like how people found you, like how they started to find, like you started and everything. What was your step? Like did you do networking and everything? What was like, um, because you were saying there was not really coaching around and everything. It sounds like it was not really a big thing yet, and now you are. Um, yeah, how did you make this connection?
So it's funny because that is probably the one area honestly that I struggle with. Is the marketing. People find me because I'm on a bunch of directories for ADHD for adults. I'm also a high performance coach, which is for, entrepreneurs and, business owners who really want to excel in their personal and professional life, whether they have ADHD or not. And so sometimes people find me through one of those avenues, or I get some clients find me through their physicians. Sometimes they'll get it through a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Sometimes the social media piece feels like, oh, for me, right? That stuff all of a sudden I just sometimes I'm like, "Oh my gosh, what am I gonna talk about?" And so, I've been lucky or from, word of mouth, from reference, so people find me that way, and so I do wish I was better with the, social so you probably won't really see me on YouTube or doing a bunch of things like that yet, but again, that's my area of growth, right? And so I always figure, "Hey, if my mission is to find that person who's looking for me, they won't find me sitting in my office, right?" And so every day it's that little bit more of faith of why I'm put here, what my mission is, right? And it's not about me, right? It's like, Dawn, don't think about yourself. You're thinking about the person who needs to find you. Like, I wish I had found a version of me, 20 years ago.
No, that's good. I mean, we are here for help, and for sure, you're giving something to people. I also like what you say. Like, you don't have to know that you have ADHD or have ADHD. Like just you believe there is something different inside you. Something like you were saying, like your mind, the way you do it, is not in that box that everyone talks about. Here, let's discuss. And obviously, like I also do some coaching and everything. I would say like I'm not for everyone. It's not everyone is gonna connect to, because for how much you're a coach, like you still you are a certain type of person. There is a certain things that you think are truth, and certain things that are like works best. And like it's hard to work with everyone, but I'm sure like when God's put you there in some position, there is a reason, and you're gonna attract certain type of people, no matter what you do. And I like the way you went. I mean, honestly, the way you went is the old way. It's the way that I've always been working. Like networking, speak with people, connect with other specialists, exchange things. No matter what age we will go, I think that is gonna be still the main way that people is gonna come. Mostly when we speak about, you were saying executive, like high end people, they're not gonna trust social media. Also, these people they don't spend a lot of time on Instagram or things like that. There are people that they're normally looking connection. They're looking for like, hey, you told me that lady is good. She knows what she's talking about. Do you know about her? And you're like, yeah, I work with her. And then like, okay, cool. I'm gonna get right. They're not gonna be on TikTok, be like, oh wow, look at this. Many of them, they're not gonna do it. Like just because like being so high level, that like you want some like testimonials, you want some connection. You don't want to waste your time. You don't care about spending money, and you want to just like to be able to get what you need.
And I appreciate you saying that, and if I had a helmet cam that followed me every day, my life can be very humorous at times that it would get a lot of likes and a lot of views, and this is real life, this wouldn't be acting, right? But again, it's kind of that piece of that performance mindset, like, "Hey, here's what everybody else is doing, and here's what we do." And so to me, it's like, "Hey, be my authentic self," right? Because that's so important to me. I'm glad I'm not a marketer because that seems like it's a lot of work and it's really tricky, right? But I know that that piece comes with it because at the end of the day, my goal is to find those that need me, that need that support and that need that validation and stuff. But it's again trying to think about, okay, what's important to me and am I living in my lane of who I am and what's important and not trying to be this chameleon.
Yeah, no, that's gold for sure. Well, we are close to the end. I wanted to ask you before leaving. There's something I like to do. I want you to share something with the listener, with the people that are listening right now. Something that maybe comes from your heart, or something that you want them to hear. Mostly when we speak about ADHD and everything, if something that can maybe help a listener to go through some hard time, or like they don't really know where they are, whatever comes for you, like if there's something you want to share, I want to let you just take some time.
Yeah, I'm thinking, one of the things that I get all the time is people ask me, Dawn, I'm this age. Should I even bother right now with the diagnosis? Right. And what I would say to you is two things, right? it's not all about medication, right? So some people think that if they get the diagnosis, that means that they have to take medication. It's not about that, but it's about that validation of or the aha of maybe understanding why things have been the way they are or why things are difficult. It's also having some of the language around it, right? It's giving you the options of, okay, well, now that I know this, now what? Do I want to proceed with medication or coaching or therapy? And how do I work with my brain than still trying to force myself? And so, I get clients sometimes that are, later in life and they're kind of wondering, you know, um, should I even bother? And so for that, I would say, I think that that's important. And it's, whether you decide to use medication or not, but just to have that understanding and to give yourself that self compassion, right? Either way, medication is one piece, but there's still the skill piece. And, just like you were learning how to use right handed scissors, right? Executive function is one of these skills that we can build these muscles, right? We just have to work on them. And so, knowing that, hey, here's an area that maybe I wanna work on these skills is so important, right? Because, the cost of untreated, ADHD or just the toll, right, is we're not always so great with time, right? We've missed opportunities. We sometimes have that emotional exhaustion or dysregulation, burnout, and that constant narrative in our head that is just that negative inner critic that we don't need. So I think that's one thing that I would say is there is a lot of benefits to getting that diagnosis, or even just if you don't get the diagnosis, reaching out to somebody and saying, hey, I'm struggling with this. Can you help me? Right? Because we want to live, the best, the fullest life that we can.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Don, for sharing. And for everyone listening, all of her information, the website, they're gonna be in the description below. If you want to get in touch with her or you want to check the website, you can do it. Thank you again for be part of the Like Marketing podcast. We want everyone to subscribe, leave a like, comment if there is something else, like something so many other questions you have for Dawn, you can always leave us in the comment. We can bring her back and we can hear more from her. But yes, we thank you again, Dawn. It was great to have you on the podcast. I learned a lot from this podcast. I enjoy to do this also because it helps me to learn and to see what else there is around me. And I hope to see you again in the podcast.
Yes, me too. Thank you so much for inviting me here and for sharing this information. I think it's such an important topic, and I appreciate you taking the time to get the messages out there.
And for everyone else, have a blessed day. Thank you very much.
Thank you.